All right, so my name is Lynel Goodwin, and I'm here with Band Room Nation. That's bandroomnation.com. And I'm actually here with the Gregory Drane, Assistant Director of Bands, or Associate Director of Bands, excuse me, at Penn State, Pennsylvania State University. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Some of you may know he recently went through the job search and became the short list of candidates for FAMU's Director of Bands position. So he came in with us today at Band Room Nation just to talk about his background, tell us a little bit about who he is, and give us a little bit of insight on what was going on with the process. All right, how you doing today, Mr. Drane?
I'm doing fine.
All right, all right.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get right to it. Let's get right to it. Let's start out with some personal stuff. Who is Gregory Drane?
Gregory Drane is I'm a African American male from Miami, Florida. Born and raised in Miami, Florida. Went to Miami New Orleans Senior High School, where my director was Mr. Kenneth Tauber, recently departed. But and I went, and I'm a graduate of Bethune-Cookman. The great Bethune-Cookman University, and I currently work at Penn State University.
All right, awesome. Now, I did a little bit of research on you myself, and I found out some things from one of your biggest fans. I was told that your favorite football team is the Buffalo Bills.
Yes. That doesn't go over very well with my Miami friends. But how that happened is when I was growing up, my uncle played safety for the Buffalo Bills. Yes, during the fourth-time the unsuccessful run at the Super Bowl, he played safety for them. But he was a graduate of Miami Central. And he went to University of Oklahoma, and he played for Buffalo. So as I was a young lad, I was growing up and rooting for my uncle, who was a Buffalo Bill, Dwight Drane.
So you were force-fed the Buffaloes, you can say.
Yes, basically.
You were brainwashed to love the Buffalo Bills.
I love my uncle, so I love the Buffalo Bills.
All right, cool. All right, I also found out that your favorite basketball team, Miami Heat.
That is correct. Unfortunately, there's a sore topic in my household. Reason being, my wife is from Cleveland. So I'll just leave it at that. So LeBron James, that name cannot be mentioned.
She's not a fan.
Not at all.
She's not a fan of LeBron James. Do you guys have any rituals in the house where you're burning jerseys or writing his name down in burning paper?
That would certainly not happen. But whenever I'm watching the Miami Heat, she has to go into the other room.
All right. All right. So also I heard that when you go to the movies, you get an unhealthy amount of butter.
That is very true.
On your popcorn.
That is very true. I'm so programmed. When I walk, it doesn't matter if I just ate dinner. I walk in, I get the largest popcorn they have, and I just tell them to drown it in butter.
Just load it in butter.
Yes.
All right. Also, your middle name, I was told your middle name is Abdul, and there's actually a story behind that.
Yes, it is. My father was a prize fighter in Miami, and he worked out in one of the famous gyms down on Miami Beach, and he was real close friends with Mackie Clay, who is Muhammad Ali's brother.
All right.
And I was always around the gym, and he always called me Abdul. He would say, Abdul, Abdul. And then it got to a point where that kind of became my name, and my parents went ahead and officially added that to my birth certificate, to my name. So that's how I got my middle name. All
right, that's pretty cool. So you've been around a lot of celebrity. You've been in the limelight for quite a bit growing up.
I guess if you call it the limelight, but yes.
All right, no problem. Let's see. Let's move along into your collegiate experience.
Yes.
All right. You did say that you went to and graduated from the great Bethune-Cookman University. All right, what year did you attend Bethune-Cookman University?
I got to Bethune-Cookman in 1996. I was a freshman, and that was Mr. Wells' first year as well.
Wow.
He was there, and I remember we were 88 members strong that year.
Wow.
So I was there during the more or less the transition, I guess, to the current, I guess, Marching Wildcats under Mr. Wells' administration. So we were right there through the thick of that.
How was that transition? A lot of people don't hear much about that transition from someone who was actually there.
Well, just like I say, coming in and the band was smaller, and I think there was a paradigm shift, you know, in the philosophy and psychology, and quite frankly, there were people who may have been in the band or may have, but that were not necessarily there for the right reasons.
Gotcha.
So
that's with any program.
Yeah. So the band staff made a decision that, hey, right here and right now, we're gonna eliminate those people who were toxic to the program.
Right.
In some cases, and so they had to make some tough decisions, and resulted in the band being small that year.
Right.
But I think because they made that move at that time is the reason that you're seeing the Marching Wildcats right now at 320 and 360 members.
Right, because I think, so to speak, you have to trim the fat and then build the muscle.
Exactly.
And I guess that's exactly what they did, because what you see now is pure muscle.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Right, and as a student at that time, and now looking back on it as an educator, it was one of those, well, yeah, it's gonna hurt right now,
right, but
in the long run, I think we are seeing the benefits of those decisions that they made 10, 15 years ago.
Right, 10, 15 years ago. All right, pretty nice. Were you active in the band?
Yes, I was. I was a section leader in saxophone section. And I was co-section leader with one of my best friends, Eric O'Neill. We actually started playing the saxophone. We learned together in middle school, and were able to go through middle school, high school, and then go to college together. So we had a good relationship. But we were co-section leaders. I was the band president.
Okay.
I was about to say the nickname they gave me. They used to call me the band quarterback.
I've heard that before.
They used to call me the band quarterback. Reason being because whenever Mr. Wells wasn't around, he would more or less leave me in charge.
Okay.
He was
all right.
So they said that I was the go-to guy.
Wow.
But yes, and I was also a member of SGA while at school, and I was the president of the Men's Senate.
Okay. All right.
So doing all of that time. I was still involved in the campus community.
Nice. So, just a quick question: what made you choose Bethune-Cookman University or college at that point?
Well, at that
what made you want to go there?
At that time, it was the right decision for me. Of course, like most young men and women, bandswomen in Florida, you have to make that decision. Are you going to Florida A&M or are you going to Bethune-Cookman?
Right.
And my high school director I went to Florida A&M, and a number of my friends was going there as well. But and I went to a number of band camps, so I thought I was going to be attending there. But when it came down to the decision, I had met Mr. Portier.
Okay.
And it was just the interaction that I had with him.
Okay.
Not saying that this wasn't present at Florida A&M, but Mr. Portier, I immediately knew that he cared about who I was.
Right.
And you, if you've interacted with Mr. Portier, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
By the way, Mr. Portier is the associate director of bands. He's also the chief arranger.
Yes.
Yes, at Bethune-Cookman for the Marching Wildcats. All right. Now, how much of an impression would you say that Donovan Wells has made on your life now?
He's made a big impression. Just like any band director who's out there or any other music educator, once you get your first gig, you realize how influenced you are by your former directors. But he has been very, very influential in my career, and of course from now we don't speak very often, but when we do talk, it's about the things that I'm been going through as a young educator, so he's been a valuable resource.
Okay. What would you say are some of the things that you took from him and observing how he ran his program? Any sayings, anything, specific things that he does, any mantras that he uses, anything like that?
One thing you quickly learn about Mr. Wells is he's a no-nonsense guy.
No-nonsense guy.
At all, it's his way or the highway. And that's very clear. But the thing that I've learned from him is discipline. And discipline, and not in the traditional sense of you do something bad, this is going to happen.
Right.
But discipline in the sense of showing up on time.
Yeah.
Knowing your music, and a whole bunch of other things that go along with being a bandsman. But doing those things without someone having having to tell you to do that.
Right.
And that's the type of discipline. So more or less the self-discipline.
Okay.
You know, so and not just doing the right thing when someone's looking. You know, so that is the number one thing that I've taken from Mr. Wells, is making sure that discipline is in place, and those, but more or less, like I call them now, expectations.
Gotcha.
That those things are in place, and no matter what, you stick to them. The rules are the rules. The standard is the standard. And then secondly, I would say just the structure, you know, which goes along with discipline as well. But, you know, being consistent. And that's one thing people always say about Bethune-Cookman Marching Band, the consistency. And so, and you can tell that is embedded in his philosophy. Right. And that's one of the things that was ingrained in me.
Okay, very, very nice. Now, I was able to watch one of your field shows that you did for Penn State, the tribute to the troops.
Oh, the military appreciation.
Military appreciation. Yes. You got rave reviews on throughout the Penn State community and just throughout the community as a whole. Would you say, with your drill writing, who influenced your drill writing?
With my drill writing, probably it's a multiple. Many people have influenced it. You know, being at Cookman, of course, always watching Cookman, and then also watching, you know, the many, you know, halftime shows from Florida A&M, and then also, you know, the head director at Penn State, Dr. Bundy, and I would say probably more so him, you know, now within my drill writing and as far as incorporating the Penn State style, you know, and which is, you know, a mix of traditional style and a mix of core style aspects into the show. But I would say it would probably mostly be Dr. Bundy, but at the end of the day, you know, we always put ourselves into our product, right? You know, so I think you know, my halftime shows now is a result of all of that. Right.
It's a mixture of all of it. All right. Well, I think this is a great segue to go into your professional experience now, as far as where you are now currently with Penn State. Yes. What capacity do you serve at Penn State? Your official capacity.
My official title is the Assistant Director of Athletic Bands. Okay. But I also teach courses. Teach a lot of I teach a lot of non-music majors. So I teach music theory to those guys. A lot of general arts credits. Gotcha. And then also our structure where each band is actually a class. So gotcha. I'm the instructor for the basketball band, the pep band, and then also we have a volleyball band, which is kind of unusual. Wow. Yes, we started a volleyball band. We call it our fall athletic band, and we started that about 6 years ago. It was one of my ideas that I kind of came up with because you have to audition to be in the marching band. Definitely. And it got to a point where we were cutting so many people. We were cutting almost 100 students. Wow. Yeah, so we have our numbers are set, and you come in and audition. So we were cutting almost 100 students a year. So I wanted to create a place for these students to go. Right. So I created the Fall Athletic Band, and that band is now 160 members. Wow. Okay. Yeah, so imagine a 160-member pep band at a volleyball match. Game. So our 4-time national champion volleyball team, they appreciate it. That in there. So there's a whole nother atmosphere in that we do. So,
how many members is the Penn State marching band?
Penn State marching band is 300 members.
Wow. Okay.
So you got a 300-member marching band, then the 160-member volleyball band, and then the 180-member basketball band.
Okay, all right. So you're pretty much you're the head of athletic bands?
Yes, more or less. And the way we're structured is, I run all of the pep bands, and technically, for all technical purposes, I'm the assistant to the marching band, right? So, gotcha. but any athletic band you can. You can guarantee Greg Drane is involved. Yes.
Gotcha. All right. My next question is, how did your training at Bethune prepare you to serve in the capacity that you are serving in at Penn State?
My training, just you know, when they're preparing you to be a music educator, you know, all of the things that go into that, the educational aspects, teaching music. And then, as any band director can tell you, there's those other intangibles when you get out and you're like, oh my God, they didn't teach me this.
It's not in the books.
You know, and that's when a lot of times we rely on our former directors, you know, like I said, like Mr. Well, Mr. Portier, and Dr. Powell and Mr. Ore, you know, and those guys have always made themselves available for those situations that I wasn't necessarily prepared for. But I think they did a great job, you know, and a lot of that came from my observation of how the program was run at Bethune-Cookman. Right. So it wasn't more a formal training in a lot of areas, but it was the informal training where you're watching and you're seeing how things are handled and gone through and approached in a strategic manner.
Gotcha.
And that's the things you don't get class credit for.
Right, definitely. It's not in the book.
Right.
All right, so what actually caused you to interview for Penn State? What brought you to Penn State?
What happened was I remember I had a job lined up in Atlanta.
Okay.
It was a few weeks away from graduation. And I was ready to go, and I remember Mr. Wells came to me. He said, "Hey, Greg, they're looking for graduate assistants." He was like, "I think you should apply." And I'm thinking, "Oh, whatever. I'm going to Atlanta."
Right.
You know. But I was obedient, and I went ahead and I applied, and I got a phone call back, and they were interested. So I went for an interview to be a graduate assistant. So I went to Penn State, got my master's, and before I graduated, they actually hired me as an assistant. There was no assistant at the time. Okay. So they created the position for me to stay. And here I am 11 years later.
Wow.
So I've been at Penn State 11 years. And, you know, of course, I thought I'd go get my master's degree and leave. But the opportunities kept presenting themselves that I'm fortunate that my first job was on the university level.
Right.
At Penn State University.
Right. All right, so what are some of the distinct differences in running a PWI program as opposed to an HBCU program that you observed running an HBCU program?
I guess I can only speak about my experience, you know, at Penn State and also in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The Big Ten conference as far as the predominant white universities are concerned. And you know, the irony is those programs are just as historic.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know that
some even more so.
Exactly. You know, Penn State band is 127 years old now.
Wow. So
there's a rich, deep, embedded history. You know, we've been doing the same pregame for 30 years now.
Okay.
Which is a show like people come to the game early to see the Penn State pregame, you know, which rivals, you know, the Ohio State Script Ohio.
Right.
You know. So that's in that regards, there's no difference, and I don't think that many people realize that.
Right.
You know that those schools are just as steeped in tradition, if not more. You know, because there's such a long history. But as far as running the programs, I would say at Bethune-Cookman we rehearsed a lot more.
Yeah.
At Penn State we probably only have about 10 to 12 hours of rehearsal time a week.
Okay.
So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And then on Tuesdays we rehearse from 6 to 9 p.m.
Okay.
So that's not many hours.
Right. Right.
So I would say in that regards, that's where the differences kind of come into play. Which means, you know, there's some differences in preparation. Right. You know, and how we handle those things. But there's not much difference at all, and I don't think many people realize that.
They don't.
A band is a band.
A band is a band. Yeah, no matter where it is, no matter who's in it, the band is a band.
Exactly.
I got that opportunity to see a band from, I think it was Mexico in the Rose Bowl parade. and they were playing the same instruments we were playing.
Exactly, same instrumentation.
Right, same instrumentation.
Just a different style of music.
Exactly, different style
and
of
music.
music.
And I guarantee they work on the same things we work on. Phrasing, tuning.
Exactly.
Blend and balance, all of those same things.
And that's what's so great about music. It's a universal language, and it truly is a universal language. It's not just a saying. So how is it that you guys are able to maximize your rehearsals in preparation to get such a good product with such little practice time? Do you think everybody could practice like that and get the same type of results?
No, I don't. Okay. I'll be very honest. The number one thing that I've learned being at Penn State is preparation. We spend all summer getting ready for the fall. So we're meeting on a regular basis in the summer, and we're putting the pieces of the puzzle in place because our football season is so intense. Once it hits, it's just like everything else. Once the opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare.
Right.
So every game is 110,000 people. Woo. Every game is 110,000 people, and if something doesn't go right, you will hear from for the fans. And I know that a lot of historically black colleges, our fans are intense and this and that. But imagine 110,000 people watching you.
Right.
Every week.
Every game.
And for in our case, a number of them are alums. A number of them did march in the band, so they're going to say, we have numbers and letters for the person in each squad. So I saw B4 and he was, it can't get that specific.
Wow.
So preparation.
Wow.
So by the time I get to rehearsal, I know what I'm going to rehearse. I know what needs to happen. So there's a whole, there's no wasting of time. When you only got 2 hours, I don't have time to say, let me figure this out.
Right.
But I think that is the thing that has been able to make us continue to be successful throughout the years at Penn State. And then also, the shows that we write, it probably takes me about we worked it out. We tried to figure out how long it takes to write a halftime show. It probably takes about 24 to 36 hours to write one halftime drill.
Okay. Just
because how we do it is very intricate, So when you're spending that much time, you got to spend that beforehand.
Right.
So like I say, once again, when I get to rehearsal, I know, squad 43.
Yeah.
Hey, that was a step 2 right there.
Right.
I already know.
Right. Now, it sounds like it's way more productive when you're having practices like that. Would you suggest that, if you were to go to another program, high school or college, would you try to instill that same type of rigorous schedule with them?
Yes. At this point, that is a part of who I am.
Right.
Preparation. I like to be ready for any obstacle that may occur, and in a lot of cases, you end up fixing problems before they happen when you do it that way.
Right.
You're able to look at this thing, to look at the whole picture, and you can see the landscape. Like, this may be an issue. Or in some cases, I may realize, hey, I need to teach a new skill. I know in week 3, we're going to be doing this difficult maneuver. I begin implementing those new skills 2-3 weeks in advance.
Right.
Because we do fundamentals and things like that. So I start implementing those new skills. So by the time they get to the actual skill set, they already know it.
Right.
And we're able to implement it very quickly.
All right, something that I've always wondered, coming from an HBCU, how were you prepared to teach core style?
I think, and once again, I think when we say core style, that has such a huge connotation. I don't think Penn State is not core style.
Okay.
But I think we use core style in a lot of sense when we're talking about the low step marching maneuver.
Okay.
But we do use a low step, but we're more of a hybrid.
Okay.
And even as far as the traditional step, which the Big Ten claims rights to the high step, you know, and as in some cases they call it the chair step,
gotcha.
And which all black colleges use now, you know. However, you know, with the different stylistic things,
gotcha.
You know. So yes, we use the high step when we, you know, and especially in our pregame, everything is high step, you know, to the rear, forward march, all of those maneuvers. However, in our halftime show, we've kind of blended those aspects of some of the core style techniques with the high step, with the 8 to 5, you know. So it gives us, we're able to make a very unique product. But it did take some time to learn because at first all I knew was 8 to 5, 8 to 5, pinwheel, you know, and this and that. You know, so it took a lot of studying, quite frankly, you know. But and I think what it, you know, here I am now, you know, 10 years later, and I really feel I have a strong grasp of the concept.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to FAMU.
Yes.
All right. Have you heard about the recent issues of FAMU?
Yes. Of course. Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. Well, knowing about those issues, what caused you to apply for the position of Director of Bands for the Marching 100?
I think when everything transpired, you know, of course there were a lot of people had a lot to say, you know, and of course, you know, everyone said, oh, they should have done this, they should have did this, or I would have done this and I would have done that. So when the opportunity came and they opened the position, I had to put my money where my mouth was.
Right.
You know, and I had to do a self-reflection and say, number one, do I feel that I have the ability and the capabilities to lead that program where they should be?
Right.
And yes, I went to Bethune-Cookman College, but you know, let's be Florida A&M is a historic program, and that for a lot of us is the reason why HBCU bands are where they are. The work that Dr. Foster has done is unmatched and unrivaled. You know, so of course I have those same sentiments that many people have towards that program. But going back, but I had to ask myself, do I have the capabilities? And when I was able to look at what I have to offer, I said yes. And once I was able to say yes, then I felt, you know, then that I should apply for this position. I have capabilities. I have the musicality, you know, to offer, and I wanted to offer up my skill sets, my talents to Florida A&M.
Okay.
And that's why I applied.
Okay. Was that a decision that you talked over with Mr. Wells at all? Mr. Donovan Wells? Did you call him and ask him about, or tell him about that?
No, actually didn't. We actually didn't get a chance to talk about it until later. You know, after I had already applied, we spoke about it later. You know, and once again, you know, I think he kind of reconfirmed, like, you know what, Drane, I do think you have the capabilities, you know, to lead a program in that regard, especially one that's under the public light, you know, so often.
Right. Now, as a Bethune-Cookman College grad, as you mentioned earlier, did you feel that would be an issue in applying for, you know, a band director position at FAMU, which is such a proud school, proud of their marching band, things like that?
Of course, I thought about it, and at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, you know, I think that's probably the highest compliment, you know, and I hope that they saw it. You know, I hope that FAMU alums saw that as such, that yes, one of your most staunch rivals, and we are rivals, as you know. It could be a game of badminton.
Right. It's going to be completely
and it's going to be Rattlers
packed
versus Wildcats.
Completely packed to the rim.
But I think at the end of the day, you know, like I said, I hope that they took that as a compliment, that, yeah, one of our rivals, you know, saw that, you know, that we're looking for a band director. We're in need of a band director. And he sought to offer up his abilities, his talents, you know, for the position. So, but yeah, that's something that I thought about, and of course I understood the the internal conflict it may cause within some to say, oh my gosh, can we really turn over the reins to a wildcat? But I was, you know, and throughout the process, I was hoping that the things that I bring to the table would transcend that, would transcend the fact that I went, you know, to Bethune-Cookman, you know, which is a black college that has the same mission as Florida A&M, which is educating African Americans. So like I said, I was hoping that they could see past that, you know, that I went to a rival college. But, you know, and in my mind, I kept thinking, you know, I've been discriminated against for a lot of things. And I hope that I wouldn't be discriminated against because I went to Bethune-Cookman. You know?
Now, of course, hazing was part of the issue that allegedly brought FAMU to the position where it's at now. One of the biggest misconceptions from the outside people who aren't even a part of the band community, is that hazing is an HBCU band problem. Do you feel that hazing is isolated to HBCU bands?
No. And I hope that I know that this issue has been under a lot of public scrutiny, but it is not a HBCU band problem. It is not a black band problem. It is a problem for everyone. You know, hazing. You know, there. You know, in a lot of organizations. You know, I don't think people understand, when you have a large organization with a lot of tradition, it's easy for hazing to become an issue if not addressed properly. So no, it's not a black HBCU band issue. It's a band issue, I guess, in this regards, because there are a number of I guess you guys call them PWIs, the predominantly white institution, that have had hazing issues. There are a number that's still out there. You know, however, when the things transpired at Florida A&M, I guarantee you a lot of those organizations changed their ways as well. It wasn't just black bands saying, oh, it was a number of other schools that were able to point and say, all right, well, we need to stop what we're doing as well.
Okay. Now, is that something, well, first of all, did the FAMU issue hit home for Penn State in any way? Did it cause anything to come down from your administration to say, you need to make sure our kids aren't doing anything, you know, even if they weren't doing anything? Just, did it cause any heat or any, you know, did anything change? Did you guys get a call from administration?
No, we didn't get a call, but I mean, of course, you know, in passing in the hallway, you know, one of the administrators said, like, hey, you know, we don't have to worry about that, do we? And I'm fortunate in our case to say, no, we don't have to worry about that, you know, but just like everyone, you know, everyone else, you do take a moment to reevaluate yourself, you know, just like with, you know, I guess one of the recent issues I can think about, one of the airplanes, you know, had a hydraulic system issue. I guarantee everyone else is saying, all right, do we have that issue? You know, and only a smart organization does that. You have to do that from time to time. Like, oh, do we have that issue? And you reassured, no, we don't have that issue. So we were fortunate in that regards to be like, we double check, and is there anything that can be construed as hazing? And we would say no.
Okay. With that being said, are you doing things to be proactive against the possibility of even, you know, having those type of issues?
Any great leader does. All great leaders do that. They're being proactive against any possible issue that will have a negative effect on your program. So yes, but we were doing that before.
Exactly.
You know.
Okay. All right. Being that you were able to observe such a high-profile controversy, you know, the one dealing with Penn State. Do you feel like, observing the way that they handled it, or that they handled it at Penn State, you could take some of those same ideologies and apply them for a FAMU situation?
Of course. I think a tragedy is a tragedy. You know, and that's the thing that is simpler. And how do you handle that tragedy? You know, there's things that you have to do to address the issue, and then you also have to address public perception. Because you have to do things to regain the public's trust. And at the end of the day, that's what the perception issue is. You know, we've lost their trust. There's something that happened that we have lost their trust.
Right.
Now we need to make every effort to regain their trust. And I think in the Penn State situation, we are a year later, you know, and we have turned it into where people were rooting for us.
Right.
You know, but that came after administration made the right steps. They made the right call. There was some tough calls that Penn State had to make, and I do not envy the president or the athletic director. They had to make some tough calls, agreeing to those sanctions. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that is," and some people they were saying, "Oh, you should have just took the death penalty because it was that staunch and that strong." But making those tough decisions to say, you know what? You know, in some cases, you know what? Yeah, I didn't do everything I could have done, you know, even though it may be indirect, you know, and that was the other thing that we had to deal with everyone thinking, oh, the whole Penn State community knew.
Right.
And of course, you look back and there's a small group of individuals, you know, who has cast a shadow over all. However, all of us, we rallied together because we knew what we believe in the university.
Gotcha.
And I think that's why you have seen the results of it now, where they've had a spectacular football season, and we were on TV. What, 7 out of the 8 games that we played, you know, because everyone was interested. You know, are they going to get over this hump? And it became a point where people were invested. And so I would take those principles, but you got to make some tough decisions.
Right. And do you feel like you have to make the decisions, you know, quick and, you know, actually act on things instead of lingering on it?
No, I don't necessarily think quick, but I think you have to act in a timely manner.
Okay.
You have to act in a timely manner. And once again, in the Penn State situation, because they moved in such a timely manner, it allowed the community a chance to heal. And I think that's another important aspect that you have to consider, you know, in order to once again regain the public's trust and then regain the trust of those who believed in you.
Right.
And moving in a timely manner and begin the healing process, which is definitely was needed for us. Right.
If you're at liberty, can you tell me a little bit about the interview process for the band director position?
Oh, it was intense. I can tell you that. It went from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Woo!
I kept joking, you know, to some people. I was like, man, I sat in the same chair for almost 4 hours straight, you know. But you met with the interview committee, and then you would meet with the different teams. There was the academic team that will come in. I met with the athletics, their coaches and their staff. I also met with the music faculty. Met with the department head of the music school, and then at the end of the day, after all of that interviewing, I rehearsed the band. Woo. Which in most cases that would have been the most intimidating, but I was so relieved to get to the band room. You know, you're like, all right, I know what to do here. Oh, it's a band room, not the fact that it was a wildcat walking into the Rattler band room. That was out the room. I was just happy to get to a band room.
So how did you feel the kids perceived you?
I think, you know, at first it was like having a sub come in. You know, there's a little distance, but as we began working the music, we kind of began coming together. I had a great experience with that band. I spoke with Lindsey Sargent, their arranger, and I told him this is something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, rehearsing that group, because there was one point where we just had a magical musical moment, and I recognized it. They recognized it, and even the people who were observers, even they recognized it. We just had a moment. We were like, "Whoa!" We were all we just stopped, and we were all looking at each other like, "Did that just happen?" You know, and kind of once that happened, it was just the tension went out of the window, and we were making music, and we had fun. At the end of the day, we had fun making music, and that's what I believe in. I believe the music making process should be enjoyable. Not just for me as the director, but for the student as well.
Now, have you ever had a chance to meet Dr. White?
Yes, I have.
How do you feel that you would have done, or you would possibly do, filling his footsteps? Because he's been there for a long time.
Dr. White has been there for many years. And I have been to many Florida A&M band camps, and I have had a chance to sit on the stage with him conducting. So I know that yes, there are big shoes to fill there, but you just have to step into them,
right?
You know, and you can't be Dr. White, you can't be Dr. Foster, you can't be Mr. Wells. Those guys are already taken,
right?
You know, there's nothing to do but be yourself.
Right. Okay, let's move on then. Let's move on. Well, actually, I have one more question. This is actually from an audience member.
Okay.
How effective do you think you'll be at FAMU as the director, being as though you're a Cookman graduate? I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit.
I think we have, but certainly, I don't think that, you know, I think me being effective is going to rely on me and my skills, you know, and it's not that I would, you know, come in and implement Cookman things, I guess, you know, and I'm still not sure what that is.
Have them playing Let's Go Wildcats. Maybe that's what they're scared of. I think that's what they're nervous about.
I know, but the thing that I kept pointing out to people was, hey, man, I'm a director at Penn State.
Right.
You know, and let's be honest, you know, for many years, I was the only African-American face there. Right. So I was able to walk into that situation and be successful. And I didn't do the Cookman thing there. I just did the band director thing, which is focusing on the music, being good musicians, and implementing that marching style. I didn't go to Penn State and say, oh, you're going to change, you're gonna, because that's all I know. No. You know, I met them where they were at and further implemented their traditions.
Okay. Now, Dr. Shelby Chipman, who's the Associate Director of Bands, he's one of the shortlist candidates as well. Do you feel like you're at a disadvantage being a candidate against him?
Oh, I mean, it's Dr. Chipman. You know, I was in school while he was teaching at Central.
Right.
So of course, there's the years of experience that you cannot, you know, necessarily. You can't make that up anywhere else other than with experience. So in that regard, yeah. In that regard, yeah. But I think that's why I felt so honored to be named on a list with him.
Right.
You know, I had my sister marched under him. My cousins marched under him. So I'm well aware of his contributions, you know, to this profession. But like I said, I was honored to be on a list with Dr. Chipman. Yes. But of course, you know, yeah, there's some areas where he's stronger, you know, and I think there's some areas where I think I'm pretty strong as well.
Okay. Now, if, just hypothetically speaking, if Dr. Chipman were to receive the nod for the band director position, would you accept an offer to be his assistant band director?
I don't know. I'll just have to leave it at that. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of circumstances would have to be talked about.
Exactly. I'll have to talk it over with my wife.
Right, from Cleveland.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk about music education, because that's one of the major things that Band Room Nation likes to highlight, you know, music education in the public school system, because as you know, it's always under scrutiny, losing funding and things of that nature. So I definitely want to talk to you about music education in this interview. What caused you to pursue a career in music education?
When I got to Bethune-Cookman, I was undecided for a year, but I was leaning towards business. And I mean, I always did well in music, you know, as a student. But then it just came to a point where I said, you know, I wanna wake up and go to a job that I'm excited to do every day. And I realized I found that within music, and I'm glad. I'm so happy that I picked the right profession where I wake up every day excited to go to work, you know, and I hope I hope that my boss doesn't find out about this, but I do this for free. You know?
Yeah, we'll keep that between us.
Exactly.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think is so hard for policymakers to find value in music education? Why do you think that's always such a struggle?
I think that the struggle becomes because in many ways the product isn't as profitable. Mm-hmm. You know, when you think about football teams don't have to, you know, explain their rationale why they exist.
Right.
Basketball coaches don't have to explain why we need physical education.
Right.
You know, and so I don't know where this concept has come about, where we have to rationalize music.
Right.
Where even anthropologists have debated which come first, language or music. Mm-hmm. And in some cultures, music came first. Mm-hmm. Prior to language, and I think that is so powerful.
Right.
You know, so why are we here, you know, in the year 2013, and we have to justify making music? Right. Music is something that we inherently do. Mm-hmm. It is what we do. You know, right. even if it wasn't taught, we would find a way to express ourselves through music. Right. However, we have these great educators, and we can push forward the music agenda. But I found that so baffling that we have to justify music education. Right. You know, we don't have to justify mathematics. Right. We don't have to justify English. Mm-hmm. But we have to justify music, and I find that very baffling. But I think at the end of the day, it is a part of us as humans, and we need anything that expresses our humanistic side. We need to explore it and teach it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
What role do you feel music plays in the development of a student in the public school system, or any school system for that matter?
I think, just going back to some of those things that I was saying, but I think our public school system and even our whole education, we have this overarching belief that we're educating the total person, right? The total human. Mm-hmm. And as I've stated, that music is a part of that. Just like we're teaching ethics, we're teaching, you know, in some cases the morality, but we're teaching, you know, the mathematics and how that is involved in daily life, how language is involved in daily life, you know, social studies, learning history. Right. Music is just another one of those subjects, and it's there for a reason. Right. You know, and I think that we need to make sure that we are as committed to music as we are every other subject.
Right. Right. What would you tell, this is pretty much the same question, but what would you tell policymakers if you had to stand before a board that was contemplating taking music out of public schools, like just period? What would you tell them if you had the floor for, I guess, about 1 minute?
I would first ask them, how did they learn their ABCs? Mm-hmm. You know, which was through song. Mm-hmm. How did they learn so many things as an infant that we teach students how to do things through song? Right. I think that's a very powerful idea, thought. Mm-hmm. That we're beginning to teach these growing human beings. You know, we teach them how to interact with the world through song. We sing morning songs, or we sing songs to come and eat breakfast, or sing songs to sit down and fellowship. Right. You know, so those are the first things that I would just point out. You know, hey, and here they are, you know, maybe 40, 60, 70 years old, and they can all still sing their ABCs. Right. It's so much a part of what we do, and I just would try to point out to them all of those different aspects of how they've learned through song.
Right. Okay. Well, it's been a very, very enlightening and very fun time with you, Mr. Drane. And I do appreciate you coming and talking to us about all these things and letting us get to know you a little better.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, awesome. So this is Lynel Goodwin once again with Mr. Gregory Drane, and we are signing off. And the next broadcast you hear from me will be from the Georgia Dome at the Honda Battle of the Bands, bandroomnation.com. Thanks a lot.